So, my name is Richard Seaman, and I'm the founder and director of Seattle Life Coach Training, SLCT. And I am also the author of two books, Spiritual Reliability, and also It's All in the Sharing. So, I'm coming to you from my home in Spokane, Washington, and a lot of you don't know where Spokane, Washington is. And a lot of people think that if you live in Washington, you live in Seattle. And the truth of it is there is a city that's the second largest city in Washington called Spokane, and we're about a half a million people, and we're on the east side of Washington near the Idaho border. So I moved back here. I grew up here, and I moved back in July, and I have been loving it. So I moved back because my family lives here. I have a dad and a stepmom and two brothers and a bunch of nieces and nephews. And so I moved back to sort of have a simpler life. I was living in Phoenix, Arizona for a long time, and I just decided that I needed to have a change. So here I am. So today I'm coming at you from Spokane, Washington, and there's been a lot on my mind the last couple of weeks, which I'm sure most of you have this same exact feeling. And we're in this place of being sequestered, this social isolation, which is a brand new word to most of us. And I have also been in social isolation, and I'm being very choosy of who I'm allowing in my house. Lots of hand washing, which most of you I think are doing. And I just have been hearing a calling to get on live and to talk with you about how are we going to get through this. Like, we're all in this incredible uh, gap, and we're all in this place where we're trying to like reset our life, and we're trying to like figure out what is this mess. And the possibilities are endless. I think that we could actually turn this mess into a message. And so I just feeling very called to spend some time with you today. And I haven't been able to get into the classroom for, quite a while, like most of you. And my passion is to teach people and to bring consciousness and awareness to people's lives and to put a dent in their consciousness. And I'm not just talking about a small dent, I'm talking about a permanent dent in your consciousness. And I want to do that today with you, and hopefully we can spend some time together. And I think there's no better time than to do that today. So I want to talk to you as we're moving through this sequestering and this social isolation, and how can we respond to this time in our life. And there is a chapter in It's All in the Sharing, my first book, called React versus Respond. And what I talk about is that there's a difference between reacting and responding. So to respond is to co-create with what's possible and what's good. And to react is to co-create with negativity, like meeting that same negative energy. And I want you to really know that there is a differentiation about the difference between reacting and responding. So it's important that during this time that we are in this gap, in this reset, in this social isolation that we're in, that we really do our work. We do our work to center ourselves and to bring us into our center. And there's this part of us that can react to things, or we can respond to things. And I feel that what I'd like to share with you is that in that react versus respond mode, that there is three levels of communication. So we can talk or speak or communicate from our head, we can communicate from our heart, or we can communicate from our knowing, or our place of our soul's knowing. And I think what's really important is that we need to stay out of our heads in this. We need to be in our heart space, which is about really knowing that we're coming from a place of love and sympathy and empathy and compassion and devotion and forgiveness for ourselves and for other people, and that we allow ourselves to really just breathe into that place of compassion and, more importantly, unity. I feel that right now, one of the things that we're experiencing is the disconnection from unity, from oneness. But just like me going live today, this is really the only way that we can communicate right now. So thank God for technology. So when I talk about unity, I'm talking about that I want you to get that all problems come from separation. Therefore, the solution is connection. And what our job is in this time is to remember that even though we are not connected in physical presentness, that we are still connected in our hearts, and that we are still connected in this place of connection through the phone, connection through technology, and that we have the ability to still feel united and connected. And so I think that's important that we do this. And then the other state of presentness that we have is that we have the ability to be able to connect to our knowing or our soul. And that was what I call my God space. And I imagine that if I had a microphone and I put my microphone right down by my belly button, that this is where the universe, this is where the Spirit of God speaks right through you. And what I talk about is that there is a crystal clear channel of clarity, that we have the ability to tap into this crystal clear channel of clarity and be able to just know that we know, that we know, that we know, that we know. And when we know something, that we know that we need to be in our center. And the idea would be is that the world of effects are going to spin around us always. But as long as we stay in our center, nothing can knock us off balance. So your work during this time, even though you might be socially isolated, or maybe you're with the same person that you want to maybe you're not so connected to right now. Maybe they're driving you crazy. But the point is we have to learn how to stay in our center and to be able to know that the world's moving all around us. But have you noticed that the world's much simpler right now? That we're really having an opportunity right now to go within, to really reflect on what's important to us. And I want to just invite you that stay in our center, that we need to get out of our heads, get into our hearts, and move into our God center. And from that place, we're going to know things that we never knew before. I feel that we're in this place right now of having a massive reset. We have the ability right now to stop this entitlement that we've been in and moving so quickly, that we have the ability to be able to really stop and reset. So what I want to talk to you about is, I've talked about this in spiritual reliability, is that we are right now in a gap. And the gap is that you're not where you were and you're not where you want to be, but you're in between and you're brewing a new possibility. I want you to think about the fact that just what if this whole experience of the coronavirus moving through the planet is a massive opportunity for us to do it differently this time. You know, back in January, I went through some stuff, and one of that stuff was I went through a 4.5-year relationship ending, which was a beautiful thing because we stayed in our higher self and we helped each other get to where we needed to go. And we created a bridge to a better place. And one of the things that I heard very, very clearly during this time of reflecting on how do we move from one place to the next. And what I heard very clearly was, let's do it differently this time. So I want to ask you, if this virus that's moving through the world right now is a spiritual slap, it's that moment where, you know what, there's the whispers and you didn't listen to them, and then there was the knocking on the head and that wasn't either also enough for you. And now what we get as a universe, as a planet, is a spiritual slap. It's almost like we all got sent to our rooms to think about what we've done. And so just what if, we could do things differently this time? And I think one of the things that I've learned through this is the ability that we have to do it differently. And that means that we have to be aware and conscious that all living beings on this earth have feelings, and that we're pillaging and raping the earth. And we're taking, and we're entitled human beings. And to be quite honest with you, I love most human beings, but sometimes I don't like most human beings because of that entitlement that we are walking through, and that we think that we sort of like are dominant over the earth. And the truth of it is that we all got sent to our rooms. So I want to just ask you if there's something in your life right now that you could do differently. And what is that? And you can put it in the comments. And I see Christy's here, David, Andrea's here, Naomi and Mikey. Hi, Mikey, and Marcus. Hi, Marcus. It's good to see you guys. And, you know, if there's something that you can do differently this time, what is it? What could you do differently this time? And is there something that you could stop being entitled about? I want to just now step into part of my book, which is Spiritual Liability. And when I was hearing that I needed to go live, I know that I have been leading people for the last almost 2 decades. And a little part of me was like, I don't really want to put in the energy, or I don't want to have to do my hair. And so, I just decided that as someone that's been leading people in the world, that I'm going to do that. And one of the things I want to talk to you about, if you are familiar with spiritual reliability, is the 8 guiding principles to living a spiritually reliable life. And if you have the book, you might want to go to page 57. And I'm going to talk to you about what spiritual reliability is and the 8 guiding principles. I'm not sure if I'm going to get to all of them today, but I'll do my best, and I'll try to be CCQ, which stands for clear, concise, and quick. Okay, so let's talk um, about the what is spiritual reliability. So spiritual reliability is being loyal and obedient to the truth of spirit as it arrives in each moment. So just like what I was doing today, I've been contemplating, do I want to get on live and do I want to have sort of our own little moment of church? Do I want to bring and unite people together and have a common conversation? And I said yes, because when I'm teaching, I do it because I'm my highest expression of myself. I'm never in a higher place than when I'm teaching others. And as you probably know, Spiritual Reliability, I'm sorry, It's All in the Sharing is my first book. And I'm not promoting my book today. What I'm doing is I'm sharing with you, because I believe that when we share our gifts with other people, that it's possibly the first flicker of light to the unconscious mind, and that we're trying to share. So what I'm going to share today is a few things. And I like to talk and I have the gift of gab, so I apologize. But I want to walk you through the 8 guiding principles on page 57. And again, what is spiritual reliability? It's being loyal and obedient to the truth of spirit as it arrives in each moment. So right now I'm wondering how many of you are hearing this, the truth of spirit moving through you, like whispering, like ancient wisdom moving through you, and you're hearing things and you're wondering if I should do that. And I want to know is how many of you are being spiritually reliable? How many of you are being obedient and loyal to that whisper within you that's calling you to be better, that's calling you to evolve, that's calling you to up-level your life? And before I started this live today, I pulled these delicious cards that I've got by, it's like actually a student called Tyson. And the 3 words, I'll tell you about the first one. This is the first word, and it's the word of expressive. And so I don't know what that means to you, but the word expressive to me means that I need to be expressive with my gifts. And I'm going to express that now. So again, we're talking about the 8 guiding principles to being spiritually reliable. So let's go into page 58, and let's talk about the first principle. So number 1 is I am committed to divine higher guidance, and I understand that I co-create my life with the divine. So think about that. So I am committed to divine guidance, and I understand that I co-create my life with the divine. So what if you knew that your job in this world is to stop, pause, reflect, listen to the whispers, listen to the ancient wisdom that moves through you, and know that everything that you do is a co-creation with something greater than yourself. If that was the way you operated, wouldn't your life be differently? So I invite you in this moment to stop, pause, and reflect, and have the ability to be able to get that you are co-creating your life with something greater than yourself. And what I believe is that when you don't believe that you're co-creating your life with something greater than yourself, which I call spirit, then you're wandering aimlessly through your life, doing it yourself in your own meager little way. And everything is harder that way, because it's almost like I am a human, and I call this a blended being. And a blended being is someone that understands that there is higher intelligence above you, which I call in the heavens, and that we reach up there and we get that information from the higher intelligence. But then a blended being will bring that to the ground and do their groundwork. And so what I'm asking you is I'm asking you to get that you can't do this alone. No one can do this alone. And when you believe that, you're wandering aimlessly through your life trying to do it yourself. And life is super, super difficult. So that was the number one principle to living a spiritually reliable life. Number two, I am willing to be utilized for a greater, higher purpose. So that's my life's mission, that I can live my life and know that my life is being utilized for the greater, higher good in the world. And what I believe is that we all need to be in spiritual labor, giving birth to our greatest and highest self. And if you think about that, giving birth to your greatest and highest self, if everyone in the world was giving birth to their greatest and highest self, the whole world would rise. Think about that. The whole world would rise. And so it really starts with you. It starts with you giving birth to your greatest and highest self every day and doing the right thing every day. And the word righteousness is a trigger word, but if you break the word righteousness down, it means right use. So imagine you using your life in the right ways. And by doing that, you're going to give birth to your highest self, and then it's going to be contagious, and other people are going to be able to do the same thing because you're an example. It's not just in you, it's when you be that, you give other people permission to do the same thing. Okay, number three, I operate from a high level intention to serve. So let's talk about this. So there's a difference between a low level intention and a high level intention. And a low level intention is one that says, what am I going to get? How is this going to serve me? It's more about the ego, and it's about fame, and it's about having the ability to know that I'm really about me, and I'm going to make sure that this only serves me. A high level intention to serve is one that says, how may I serve the greater higher good? And how can my contribution uplevel the world? How can what I put into the world be a powerful attribute? How can my contribution to the world uplevel the world? And that this is the big one, that everybody wins in this scenario. That the low level intention is that you win and you're the only one that wins in this. Where a high level intention is one that says everyone's going to win in this. So my exchange with you, my contribution to you is the ability to be able to know that in this exchange that we're having, that every single person in this wins. Think about it. Number four, my contribution to the world is an up level, and I ask myself, how can I serve rather than what I get? So that leads me to what I just was saying. So it's really, really about asking that question is, how can I serve rather than what am I going to get? And I think that it comes down to the ability to be able to really ask yourself those questions every day and to stop and pause and reflect. And how can you serve? And it may be as simple as checking on your neighbor, or it may be as simple as calling somebody that you have been put on your mind, because that goes into that you're co-creating your life with a higher power. And if your higher power all of a sudden puts someone's in your mind, you probably should call that person and find out how they're doing. So that's about serving versus what can I get. Number five, I take time to breathe and get calm and quiet my mind in order to hear God's whispers. This is a big one. And this is about really getting your divine downloads. The ability to be able to stop, pause, reflect, and to take the time in to breathe, which is huge. So, I think breathing is the greatest reset we can have in our life. And when we do that, we get calm, we get quiet, and we can then hear God's whispers. And I think that that's one of the things that we don't do. And I want to talk about this. So there is a difference between prayer and meditation. So to pray is to ask, and to meditate is to listen. And here's what I know about people, is that everyone's out there praying, and they're begging, and they're asking, and they're saying, please God, help me. And they're begging for something, so for some outcome, for some result, for some piece of healing in their life. But they're begging, they're praying. It's usually they're asking for something. But the difference is that prayer is asking and meditation is listening. So the part that I'm talking about here is quieting your mind in order to hear God's whispers. So when we pray, that's great, and we can pray, but we pray in a way that we pray that it's already manifested, that it's already done in our reality. And then we have to sit quietly and breathe even deeper. And from that place, then we need to listen. This is the whispers I'm talking about. It's almost like your marching orders, that we have the ability to stop and listen to the divine download and what it is that we need to do. And I've talked about the difference in my work between divine timing and your timing. And sometimes we ask for things and we don't get them. And that might be actually a delay or a detour or a denial. But what if that delay or detour or denial really is a protection mechanism to not give you what you need right now because it's not for your greater and higher good right now? So we have to stop and pause and get that when we don't get the answer we want, if you're listening to the divine download, your marching orders, so to speak, that is not what you're supposed to have at this moment. It's almost like being caged. It's almost like how you'd put a puppy into a crate or how you might put your child into a playpen. God's the same way. It's like, no, not right now. Okay, let's continue. Number 6, I hear and I feel and see and sense divine guidance as it arrives. So when we see, sense, and hear divine guidance as it arrives, that's probably one of the 5 senses, maybe intuition. But I feel that as we step into sensing and experiencing and feeling as the divine guidance arrives, is that that's where we have the access of actually pausing and reflecting and to getting calm and breathing. And what I've noticed is that I sort of get a download, right? I get this download of information and I feel like I feel something or I sense something or I just know something. And that's how Spirit talks to us. Spirit doesn't just talk to us through this loud voice. Maybe it does sometimes, but we have to be willing to, again, stop, pause, reflect, breathe, pray, meditate. And again, to meditate is to listen. And that's what I have found in my work, is that people don't listen and we push things to happen. So what I'm inviting you to do is to really get the difference. And if you're going to sit down and you're going to pray, then you need to also listen to the answer. And it doesn't always mean you're going to get what you prayed for, because again, there is divine timing and there's your timing. And I promise you that divine timing is going to win out all the time. Number 7, I show up where God needs me next, and in doing so, this allows my life to be utilized for the greater, higher purpose. So this kind of connects everything I'm talking about. It's this idea that I'm showing up where I'm being told to show up, that I am being utilized for the greater, higher good, that you have an opportunity every single time and every connection that you have to be able to really serve the greater, higher good, and asking yourself, how can my contribution up-level this experience? It's really important that we are being pushed to the next level of our life, and that we are a divine expression of our higher power, that God moves through you and all around you. But if you don't get that, then how are you going to serve the greater, higher good? Number 8, I know that I'm always connected to the divine without interruption, and there is no place that God is not. It's a powerful statement. So, one of the questions that I've been asked many times, and we can think about this even in the coronavirus pandemic, is what if God is in this? What if God, universe, spirit is in this? And I always say, even in this, God is. And when we get this, when we get that, if we try to find that silver lining in this pandemic, that again, it's that reset, that we get to reset as a global consciousness and do it differently this time. And stop being put into our rooms because we weren't listening to the whispers. We weren't listening to the knocks on our heads. Now we got the spiritual slap and we're dealing with this horrible thing that's happening. And so what I'm asking you is that what if God is even in this? What if? I mean, I think you probably have all thought about this. Like, what is this about? And I think that it's about our entitlement and our pillaging and our raping of the earth and everyone else, and not stopping and pausing and reflecting. And maybe it's not all about the money. It's really about serving the greater, higher good, and that everyone wins. And that includes you, and that includes every being on this earth. Every being on this earth. And so I've given you a lot, but I want to ask you, what can you do differently this time? How do you need to reset your life? And remember that we're all in a gap. We're all in a gap right now. And we're not where we were, and we're not where we want to be, but we are brewing a new possibility. And it's our job right now to be able to really get that this reset is a time for reflection. It's a time for going in and going in and looking within ourselves to really contemplate life and what's important to you, and to have the ability to be able to stop, pause, and reflect. So I wanted to step into something else here, and I wanted to talk to you guys about a couple more things that I have. And one of them is the word expansion. So again, I pulled these 3 cards today out of a pile of 150. And the word expansion showed up. And I feel like that was really cool because the first one was expression. And this one now is about expansion. So I think this is like really connected to what I'm talking about today, that we need to express ourselves as our highest expression of ourselves, and to give birth to our highest expression of ourselves. And when we do that, we're going to expand, not only expand ourselves, but expand the entire consciousness of the world. And so I'm asking you, and I think the universe, because I pulled this card, is to expand. So I want to talk about, again, about the gap, because we're all in the gap right now, and we're moving through something, and we don't really have a choice. It is what it is. So I'm going to read from my book a little bit and talk about the gap. So the gap is a reset, taking you from one place to another. It is a time to uplevel your life. Gaps can sometimes be dull and painstakingly annoying because you're in a holding pattern and we're waiting for divine timing to arrive. In order for God to get you from where you are, to get you to the next place, God had sometimes had to rip the rug out from underneath you and shake up your reality. I wrote that in like 2014. Was I clairvoyant? I don't know. But that was my divine download. So think about what I just said. In order for God, universe, spirit to get you where you need to be next, God had to rip out the rug out from underneath you and shake up your reality. So I feel that if that is not something right now that we're all doing, then you're not getting it. That we are being, the rug was ripped out from underneath us, and it's painstakingly annoying. And now it's our work to spend time going within and reflecting and pausing and spending time asking ourselves, how can I do this differently? So let's go further. So I built this trust model, and I'm page 146 if you're following along. So I built this trust model a while back, and I talk about that when we're jumping into the gap, it requires trust. And the trust model is broken into these things. So T stands for we have to trust and allow. So trusting is that even though I can't see the path before me, that I'm trusting what I can't see, that I'm trusting that even in this, God is, and that I'm going to allow the process to happen. And so it's so important for us to be able to spend time in the allowing of this gap, and that we trust in what we can't see. One of the things that, yeah, hi Diana, he actually blends into the couch. that's all over. That what we're not doing is that we need to allow this process to unfold. And one of the things, like, 'cause I'm really talking about faith right now, and one of the things I talk about and I want to share with you is that faith is learning to walk in the fog. And our work in this is to learn to walk in the fog and allowing that fog to move around us so we can move through it. So let's talk about the next. So trust is the first, which is the T in trust. And then we've got R, which is release and accept. So our work in this at this point is to release the outcomes, to have no attachment to the outcomes, to release it to our higher power, to release and accept what is. And we have to be willing to release how we think it should be. We need to release the fact that maybe we won't have toilet paper right now. Or ironically, I went the other day to get garlic and there was no garlic anywhere. And I went to 4 stores. So I could have bitched and moaned about that, or just accepted and released that maybe I'm not supposed to have garlic tonight. So it's super important for us to understand that the T is trust and allow, that the R is to release and accept. Let's move on. U in trust, to understand with faith. To understand with faith is really about the understanding that even though we can't see with our own eyes, that we have to understand that there is divine timing and divine order moving through this. And it's important that as we do this, we understand with faith that faith, again, is walking through the fog. It's learning to be a fog walker. And so many of us, and I'm seeing a lot of you, you're all one of my students. You've been my students for years. And I think that if anything I've taught you is that to understand with faith is there's just some things that are an is, right? So when we accept that it is what it is, then eventually it becomes a was. So I want you to think about what I just said. It is what it is. And when we accept what it is, then it becomes a was. When we are struggling without understanding with faith, if we're struggling with that, then we never get to and so it was. So I want you to say that out loud right now. It's and so it was. There's so many things that are wases in our life, and the only way we got there was to understand that first it is what it is, and now it has to become a was, and we have to move through that gap, or what I refer to as a knothole, right? So it's, again, the U is as surrendering with faith. The S in the trust model is surrender and release. So I have this feeling like it's like this. I just put my hands in the air all the time. And when I do this, this is what I call a mudra. And a mudra is something that you do that creates a different state of mind. There is a difference between a mantra and a mudra. So a mantra is something that you say or repeat that can change your state of mind, and a mudra is something that you do physically, a physical act that changes your state of mind also. So for me, it's about hands in the air. I surrender and I accept. Because again, it is what it is. You can't change it. And the only thing you can change is how you respond to it. So again, going back to the beginning of this video, you can react or you can respond. React is to co-create with negativity. Respond is to co-create with what's possible. And in the trust model, the surrender and release is I surrender what I can't see. I surrender what I can't change. And I release my attachment to the outcome. And I know there's divine timing and divine order in all things. And when we do that, our life gets easier because we're co-creating our life with something greater than ourselves. So let's think about that. T. I love this one. So we have T, R, U, S, T. The T is when we do this. Are you ready? When we do all these things. So when we trust and allow, when we release and accept, when we understand with faith, and we surrender and release, we then T, transcend. We transcend. We transcend our pain body. We transcend the things that we are trying to force to happen, that we become a light being and we travel faster, that we don't jump into the gap and fall all the time, that instead we go like this. A thing happens to us and then we jump the gap very quickly and then we have to go back over and do it again. And so it's really about that we want to become light beings. And a light being is someone that moves through the gap very quickly, but the most important word in that is to transcend, to rise above it. And we have the ability to rise above the world of effects, right? Because the world of effects is moving through you and all around you. And the only thing you can do to transcend is to stay in your center. And we do that through prayer. We do that through meditation. And again, we have to repeat that when we meditate, we have to listen. And we don't always get the answer we want. But that's probably because it's not for your greater and higher good. So that is the trust model that I developed from Spiritual Liability, and it comes from page 146. All right, so what I'd like to do is I'm going to end today with something that I find very powerful. And I don't know about you, but I have a lot of things that anchor me. Like I call them my wisdom books, and I also have anchors that I have, and all over back here is one of my anchors. And I find that when you have anchors, or what I refer to as wisdom books, that they're full of divine ancient wisdom, and that we have the ability to be able to find our center. So one of the ones that really, really supports me is from page 25 in Spiritual Reliability. And I want to read it to you. But before I read it to you, I want to show you what I pulled, because I kind of figured out what I was going to talk about today. I pulled these cards. And so the three cards that we've been dealing with today, the first one was expansion. So we were looking to evolve and to grow and to expand, right? And then the second one that we're looking at is expressive, and to express ourselves and to give birth to our greatest and highest self. And I think these are connected, because when we look at expression and expansion, that when we are expressing our greatest and highest self and being the highest version of ourselves, that then we are also expanding ourselves and expanding others in the world. So the last card that I pulled, which is in the chapter I'm going to read to you, is called Victorious. And we become victorious when we express ourselves and be our highest expression of ourselves. And when we do that, we expand. And then lastly, I thought it was interesting because I pulled these from a card. I didn't pull them out on purpose. The divine, I was co-creating my life with the greater higher good, and this is what the divine pulled out. And lastly, that we're going to be victorious when we do that. If you apply some of these things I've talked about today, you're going to be victorious. And we as a society are going to be victorious. But I'm going to tell you something right now that I'm very clear on. You got to do it differently this time. We can't do the same things that we've done before as a global civilization. We have to be righteous, which is defined as right use. So if to become victorious, we've got to do things differently this time. When we leave this gap and we can come out of sequestering and become out of our social isolation, we're going to be able to have the ability to do it differently this time. And then the whole world rises and we become victorious. Okay, so I want to read to you page 25 of Spiritual Reliability, and it's called One Power. So you can close your eyes if you want to. You can do whatever you want, and but I want to read this to you to close this live today. And let's just see where this goes. All right, one power. There is one power, invisible, and you can see it everywhere and every day. There is one power, indescribable, and you speak of it in every word you say. Mysterious until you know the truth, as simple as the love inside of you. Call it God, call it Spirit, call it Jesus, call it Lord, call it Buddha, call it Balahula, angels' wings, or heaven's doors. But whatever you name it and give it, it's all one power. Can't you see it? It's the power of the love in you and me. We speak so many languages, have different clothing, different colors, different names, but different is only dangerous when we forget that in the heart we're all the same. And we'll remember when we close our eyes and see that such distances and separations were never meant to be. Call it God, call it Spirit, call it Jesus, call it Lord, call it Buddha, call it Balahula, angels' wings or heaven's doors. It's Muhammad, it's in your mind, it's in your soul, it's in your signs. It's the universe, it's music, it's Mother Earth, it's Father Time, but whatever name you give it, it's all one power. Can you see it? Whatever name you give it, it's the very air that we breathe. It's the power of love in you and me. It's the moment of creation. It's an everlasting peace. It's the freedom of forgiveness. It's the sweetness of release. It's the joy of inspiration. It's the sunshine on your face. It's the bright light of all nations. It's the boundless space. It's the beauty of a baby. It's the serenity of sleep. It's the anger of abandonment for its love that's most deep. It's one power. It's the power of the love that lives forever in you and me. It's the power of love in you and me. That is a song by Daniel Namad, and I find it very powerful. And if you just look him up, it's Daniel Namad. It's Nahmod. It's one of the most beautiful songs that I've ever heard, and the lyrics are incredible. But I find that it's very, very, very powerful right now because the destruction of separation is what's caused all this. And I hope that today that I gave you something of power, and I gave you something that could help you step through this gap and this fog that we're in. And I ask you to become a fog walker and to learn how to walk in the fog. I kind of feel like I said church today. And I really, really love the spending time with you today. And I'm sure Oliver did here too. He's crashed out. But I see Anna, I see Jillian, I see Lori, I see all these beautiful people that I'm connected to, Greg, and I see Maria. And I thank you all for being here today and spending time with me today. And that I hope that you guys can find serenity, you can find peace, and that you can go within and figure out what it is that you need to do differently at the time. and how in this reset we can change the world by serving the greater higher good, and that we can spend time in reflection, and that we can breathe, and we can pray, and that we can listen by meditation, and that we are in this beautiful place of reset. And I know that we're all in this together, and there's a reason, and there's divine timing in all things, and that includes you. So I want to leave you with a mantra, and you can repeat it if you'd like, and it's this: I know that all things are working in my life for greater higher good. And I know that all is well in all things, and that includes you and me and every part of my life. And I now release this into the law of God as done, and so it is. Thanks, guys. Namaste. We'll see you next time. Bye.